Live, and I'm Derrick Day. In case you don't know me, I had a little. I guess I would have got a flag if this were football because I had a false start because I started before I actually was ready, and so now I'm ready, and I'm gonna get this thing going here. I need to change quick and make sure that okay. So I've got my audio correct. That wasn't right either. Uh, for some reason, normally I'm an early riser. I'm up at like 5:30 every day. But lately I've been sleeping in. I guess I've been tired, um, and we all go through that. But this season of the Forward Podcast, I'm working on practical solutions, things that will actually help you in your day-to-day activities because I don't want to get into real high conceptual things because at the end of the day, it's nice to know those things, but they don't really add value on a daily basis. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit, maybe about 20-25 minutes, and then at that time I'll post a link where you can actually join in on the action and let your voice be heard. Now, before I go forward, hey, play on words. Um, I want to say that what I'm about to say, does not in any way, shape, form, or fashion construe legal advice. As a matter of fact, this does not even construe moral advice. And I'll take it a step further. This doesn't actually even qualify as advice. This is just my opinion. So I'm putting that out there because I'm going to say some things that are controversial. As if, anyway, here's the deal. In the second of the Star Trek reboot movies, The Wrath of Khan, Khan, played by Ricardo Montalban, who I still think is the best Khan, he said, "Revenge is a dish best served cold." And, I'm going to tell you something. That was one of the most cold blooded movie lines I ever heard because revenge is some cold blooded shit. And let me say this starting off, that number one, if you are thinking about revenge or vengeance, the number one thing is that you probably shouldn't do it. Probably shouldn't do it. Okay. Because there are all kinds of ramifications from it. But there are times when it is absolutely appropriate. And that is counterintuitive to what I was a Christian pastor for much of my adult life. And we were taught that vengeance is the Lord's. But now I'm at a point in my life where I'm more on the atheist end of the spectrum. So there is no Lord to have to extract any vengeance or exact any vengeance. So if you're going to have a moment of vengeance, this is going to be on you, dog. Now, here's the thing. In most cases, you shouldn't do it, right? You shouldn't do it because, like I said, if you really haven't thought, if you haven't thought this out, if you haven't planned this out, if you haven't mapped this out, and here's the other thing too, is that this is something you don't really want to devote a whole bunch of cycles to, because if you devote a whole lot of mental and emotional cycles to revenge or vengeance, typically that means you're getting really emotionally invested in it. And when you get emotionally invested in it, that's when the shit's going to really go sideways. So you don't, you have to think about, okay, what is the long game of this? And is this going to happen? And but let me just go into it, because like I said, first of all, don't do it. That's the first bit of advice. Mm, I'm going to edit that out because this is not advice. My first opinion is don't do it. The second thing is decide if this is a hill that you are willing to die on. Now, this is important because if this is a hill that you're willing to die on, you probably shouldn't do it, because that means you're emotionally invested. This is something that this is a fire burning in your belly, and if you do this, you're liable to do something reckless and you're liable to do something harmful. The next thing is you want to say, okay, what can I do to actually deliver a message without causing any physical harm? Now, I say physical harm because, again, you have to think about things from a legal standpoint, because if you say do something to somebody's car that causes it to spontaneously combust, then that you're probably going to do something that's running afoul of the law, and there will be legal consequences, and then there'll also be physical consequences, because you will actually have hurt another human being, which is not what you want to do. But you want to look at, what can I do to make a statement and to send a message? Um, I'm going to give you an example, and I can't really get into it in great detail for legal reasons, but there was an extended warranty company from whom I had purchased a product or a contract for service. And I had an expensive repair on my car that the warranty company said they would not honor. So I had a means by which I could publicly, um, well, how can I say this? Publicly shame them. And I pulled that lever. And when I did, they apologized and they covered the repair. Now, here's the thing. One is that you have to do things within the framework of your ability. If you're like a social media influencer or somebody like that, you have a large audience, or like, let's say you're a radio talk show host or a television reporter or something like that. If you have a broad audience, you can there are levers that you can pull that basically, people can't mess with you, right? So you have to understand what is within your ability to do, and you don't want to go out and threaten something. In other words, we used to call this back in the hood wolf tickets, writing checks with your mouth that your ass can't cash. So you don't want to do anything like that. You don't want to write any wolf tickets. You want to make sure that what you say that you're going to do, and what you do is going to be effective. And then most of all, you want them to know that this thing that you're doing, that this is from you. That this is, that this is something that, or that it addresses the concern that you had. Okay. So, and there was another instance where there was a particular restaurant that they didn't serve my food according to my liking, and so I, I had basically sent a dish back twice to be redone, and it got messed up both times. And what happened was, I left the restaurant and I left a how can I say it, a condescending tip, and the the weight person came out and threw my tip at me. And so I basically made it a point by reaching out to some of my people in the in the local media, and I told them what had happened. And basically they ran a report, and this whole thing was rectified, and basically the ultimate objective was that they refunded my money to my credit card. um the other thing is that you have to look at collateral damage. Collateral damage, is this thing that you're about to do, is it going to impact the target and the target only? Because one of the things that people don't think about with revenge, and I'm going to tell you, like you can be gangster and all of that shit, right? Where um, this is why drive-by shootings are not effective, right? Because you people go and they do these drive-by shootings, and most of the time they don't get the person that they're going after. They get a whole bunch of innocent bystanders. They get children, they get grandmas and grandpas and all of this other stuff, and it's collateral damage. And then what happens is that um, you become more of a bad guy than the person that actually did you harm in the first place. And again, I'm not advocating going by and shooting anybody. I'm not saying be specific in who you're shooting. What I'm saying is that what you want to do is you don't want to do mental or emotional drive-bys, um, where you're doing something that the damage goes way beyond the person that you're going after. One thing I have to interject here is you have to make some steps to not be a mark in the first place, because part of the thing, or one of the reasons why people get want to get revenge for something, is because they've been taken advantage of. And typically you can't be taken advantage of if you have taken proper precautions to harden your world to avoid being a patsy. In other words, listen, P.T. Barnum said that there's a sucker born every minute. And I'm going to tell you, truer words have never been spoken. You don't want to be a sucker. So it's like, if it's a situation where you can avoid, like multi-level marketing or investing or anything like that. Those are things that you have absolute control over. You decide whether or not you're going to get engaged or involved in this. And if you can avoid things like this, then you avoid them, so that you don't get into a situation where you're pissed off and you feel like you have to retaliate anyway. Now, let me talk about something about the why. The why. Because everything I believe that has any good starts with why. And you have to ask why. Because this is the thing. I want you to understand that I'm not telling you that you should never seek vengeance, or that you should never look for revenge. I'm not saying that, because what I'm telling you today is that there is a time and a place. There is a season for everything. But what I am saying is you have to basically decide if whether or not this is something that is going to be meaningful. In other words, let me say this. This is very important. You don't want to do something just for the purpose of satisfying your own sensibilities, right? Because if you're doing that, you're doing the whole thing selfishly. Basically, I'm after revenge because this is making me feel good. And don't don't do it just to satisfy basically what you want to do. Like for me, this is my another example for me, is that in the case of religion, I go after religion not because religion did anything to me, because it didn't do anything to me, but I know things that religion has done to other people. And basically, I want to do things to avoid, or to help other people not get hurt, or help people to get out of hurt, or help people to deal with the hurt that was caused to them. Those are the reasons why I go after religion. So that's the thing. So let me see. I'm looking at something. Sandy, I'm gonna deal with that at the end. Um, because I see your comment, and I see you, sis. Um, so again, this collateral damage. Watch what what you do and make sure that it doesn't have a spillover, right? Because you can do something that, like, let's say you target someone's business, and this biz and you're targeting them, causes them to lay off hundreds of people. And you have to think that hundreds of people's livelihoods are impacted by your action. And you have to say, is the benefit of me doing this outweighing the harm that it's going to cause? And honestly, you listen, before you do anything, whether it's positive or negative in life, do the cost benefit analysis. Look at the return on investment. Look at, is this going to achieve what I wanted to achieve relative to the investment that I'm putting into it? And if that number doesn't turn out right, then basically you should let it go. And especially when it comes to matters of the heart, like vengeance and revenge, because again, if you get personally invested in this, number one, you might hurt someone else in the process. But I'm going to tell you something, that you will also bleed where you cut. Okay, you can also harm yourself in the process. And again, when you're doing this, if you find yourself in a position where you need to uh retaliate, to exact some revenge or vengeance, right? You have to say to yourself, is this needed? Is this something that, and let me say this too, is it going to get some end that you're trying to achieve achieved? Is it going to actually produce fruit? Because if it's not going to actually produce some valid result, then you don't want to, you don't want to do it. I mean, it's like, and here's the thing, right? That when, let's say, for example, someone harms a loved one, right? Someone harms a loved one. If your loved one is hurt, harmed, or killed, nothing you will do will turn that clock back. The only thing that will happen is that you could possibly teach this person a lesson not to do it again. And let me say this too. You have to understand that if someone does something that's incidental or accidental, that there was no forethought of malice involved, do not try to exact any revenge for that, because accidents happen. People do things that, one of the most famous incidents of this, John Gotti, the notorious mob boss, when one of his sons was hit by a car, and it was an accident. Everybody knows that it was an accident. His kid was playing in the street, ran out of the street in front of a car, and John Gotti's kid was killed. Well, this guy, the guy that actually hit the kid, disappeared. Yeah, we know that something happened to him, and that that is not a good case of revenge because this poor sap, he's just driving down the street and a kid runs out in front of him. He doesn't, doesn't know that he certainly didn't know it was John Gotti's son, but he pays the ultimate price for it. And that's really that's not cool. Okay. So you have to look at if it is what happened to you. Is it something that was intentional? If it was intentional, if you know that it's intentional, then yes. If there's something that you can do about it to make sure that this, number one, doesn't happen to you again, number two, doesn't happen to anyone else again, and number three, that it produces some fruit that gets you the objective that you are after, then by all means do your damn thing. Now, again, don't overthink it. Don't get emotionally involved in it, because if you do, you will absolutely positively do it wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point. And I'm going to click the link. And if anybody wants to join in, because this is a tough subject, and I thought long and hard before dealing with this. Because listen, there are times, if there is a way to stop someone else from being hurt, if there is a way to reclaim something that you lost, if there is a way to basically produce some fruit from this, then yes, a well-timed act of retaliation is a good thing. Okay, but the flip side of it is that number one, if it's accidental, you don't want to you don't want to respond. Number two, you got to say, is this a hill that I'm willing to die on? And number three, is there something that I'm going to get from this? If there's something that I'm going to reclaim from this, other than just satisfying my own emotional sensibilities, then don't do it. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm gonna put the link on here, and then I'm gonna go through the comments because I saw some really good comments out here. And so here we are. So feel free to join in. So the first one that I want to go back to is my sister Sandy. She says, I beg to differ, brother. My story of the desire for revenge had nothing to do with me having control over the situation. The culprits are alive today because I snapped out of hate. And that's cool. Because like I said, number one, if you don't have to exact revenge, don't. If this is not a hill that you're willing to die on, don't do it. Because again, if you're going after revenge or vengeance just because I'm pissed and I want to make this fucker pay for it, that's not the way to do it. So Sandy, listen, sis, we've talked about this a lot, and you handled things the right way because truthfully, you could have gone out and done some people some real harm, but you didn't. And I believe that you're the better person for it. And here's the other thing too, folks, is that I do believe in the better person theory, that you can be the bigger person and just decide, you know what, not for me, not for me. But the thing is that, like, in the case of I gave the example of the extended warranty company, right? I wanted to make sure that I was getting the value that I invested out of this thing. So I turned a screw on them and made them honor their warranty. Because here's the thing. It basically, if it had gone down to a legal thing, they could have pressed this in court and dragged this out, right? But the reality is that I had something immediate that I was able to do. And they knew that this is something that would have impacted them. So they went ahead and honored my claim. Okay. So Ben Urban says, thank you for being a human advocate. Dude, I try, man. I try. C. Rodriguez, she says, what about when the retaliation is coming for you? And that is, listen, um, how can I say this? Is that basically modern living has softened humanity. And so we don't think of things in fight or flight situations. We don't think of things in terms of how would we react as creatures in the wild kind of thing. And honestly, you know, you need to do that. I'll tell you this, like back when I was really into physical fitness a few years ago, my trainer is a former Navy SEAL, and he told me, he said your workout should be such that your body it cannot discern whether or not you're just lifting weights or sprinting a field or wrestling a bear or running from a tiger. He said basically your internal response should be the same. Your workout should stimulate it as if you were in a crisis situation, and that is going to be what yields the greatest result from your workout. So that's the thing. When the revenge or the retaliation is coming from you, listen, you have to learn how to take a 360-degree view of your world. You have to be able to assess what is identify friends or foe 360 degrees around you, right? And always be vigilant. That's the best that I can tell you, because when a threat is coming at you, you need to be hardened against the threat. Okay. And I hope that that helps. So, yeah, Cindy, you're better for not acting on your feelings. And again, this is something we've talked about, is that sometimes when we react, we're reacting just to satisfy our own craving for revenge or our own sensibilities, right? And there's not anybody else, there's no greater good. That I guess that's the term that I'm looking for. Basically, what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you are in a situation where you're looking for vengeance or revenge or retaliation, that there is a greater good component to it, that it is not just you trying to satisfy your own sensibilities. Because again, if you do that, if it's just your sensibilities, then what you're doing is you're getting emotionally involved in it. And honestly, when you are looking at trying to uh, retaliate for a wrong done to you, then you need to be kind of emotionally detached from this. You need to say, okay, that this is only intended to elicit a specific reaction or response. That if it's just doing it because I'm going to feel good afterward, no, bad move, bad move. So again, this is not legal advice. This isn't even moral advice. Matter of fact, this is not advice at all. This is just my opinion. I, I'm putting it out there. So the link is out there if anybody wants to join in. Revenge, vengeance, retaliation. That's what we're talking about today, and you are more than welcome to join in. Um, and here's the other thing too. That many times when you react in a vengeful or revenge kind of capacity, what you're doing is you're sending out a message to other people that might be considering doing something to you. You're sending them a message. You're not the one to be fucked with. And and honestly, that's a good message. Because like again, social media. There are times when people say things, and you'll say, well, should I respond to that? And you say, probably not. But then there are times when somebody says something and you think, I should respond to this so that anybody who's observing this, that they know I'm not the one to be fucked with. And that's a perfectly valid reason to do something. because some lessons are in response to or reactive, and some lessons are proactive, and sometimes you need to send out a proactive signal. I'm just saying. See Rodriguez, she says, "I'm not the one." Damn straight. Don't be the one. Don't be the one. So, not gonna hang on any longer than necessary. I'm gonna throw the link out here one more time, and that if anybody is interested in joining in, you can do that. Click the link and join in. Join in on the party. Let me know what you think about vengeance, revenge, because this is serious stuff. And honestly, this is real talk. People and a lot of people aren't going to deal with you on this. Let me put it this way. If matter of fact, if I had just talked to you maybe a year or two ago about this, and somebody says, "Hey, I got a situation here," I would have told you, don't do it. Don't go for vengeance or revenge here. Don't do it. But now I'm not so quick to say that. I'm saying that there might be a time and a place for this. That there it may be appropriate. And if it is, make sure that when you do it, that you do it the right way, that you're doing it in such a way that it is going to achieve a result, and that the intended target understands not to do this to you, or even better, not to do this to anyone else. All right. Yeah, I really thought that this restream and putting this link out here, that this would allow people to get in and share their thoughts. Oh, Percy, thank you, Percy, from the Philippines. Percy is watching from the Philippines. But that's it. No other comments. So, with that being said, how I tip out: peace and hair grease. Until the next time.